Okay, hello, good afternoon. So everyone has two sheets, and you see that that's as discussed. Okay, any questions about that? Okay. So even the weariest river wends somewhere safe to sea, and I guess this is our last meeting. Struggle on somehow. Okay, so what I want to do today is not, to be honest, it's not really so much review as points where I think directions forward are, and something about the role of consciousness in an account of reference. But let's just look back on the long road that has taken us to this point. So we began with, since today is kind of review, then do feel free to raise questions relating to anything in the course. If you think they're reasonably central, if you see what I mean, then do raise anything you like. Okay, so we began with Frege on sense and reference and formative identities, Russell on definite descriptions not really referring and really logically proper names not being analysed descriptively. Leading us into Kripke and the causal theory of reference, who tells us that how it could go for simple proper names that aren't having their references fixed by descriptions. They could be having their references fixed by causal chains. Putnam generalises it to natural kinds. Evans polishes up the causal theory. And then we move into whether you could really explain how there can be meaning in the world as described by physics using a causal theory of reference. Looking at Putnam on brains in a vat along the way. We then went into Dretschke and Fodor, pressing the causal theory right to the limit and saying there is no more to meaning generally than the right kind of causal chain. And that kind of peters out a little bit, it seems to me, that discussion. Because on the one hand, if you think, well, my task here is to explain how in the world as described by science, in which there isn't any right or wrong, we can somehow get from that to meaning and the existences of sentences that can go right or wrong. It's very puzzling to see how that can, in principle, be done. I mean, how can you derive an ought from an is? How can you take a description of the way things actually operate in the world and somehow get standards of right and wrong out of that? It is very hard. Once you see what Dretschke and Fodor are really trying to do, it's very hard to see how the thing is meant to work. Then Wittgenstein's discussion of following a rule gives you a different approach to these questions, looking at his notion of custom or practice. And Wittgenstein does two things. He throws out the way that we think of reference. He says maybe you don't need an account of reference in an account of how language works. Maybe what you need is this notion of custom or practice. But when you think about the way it goes with Tonk, it seems like you need notions of truth and falsity in an account of how language works. And then looking again at Russell's notion of acquaintance, we see how we could regenerate the notion of reference and explain how there can be signs referring to objects without the use of descriptions by appealing to the notion of awareness of the object. That's my understanding of where we got to. You don't look quite as thrilled as I hoped, but that kind of rings a few bells. Right, that's how you remember it too. Okay. So today I want to go back to something we were looking at when we talked about Evans. We talked about the function of language or the point of language. And then I think when you think that maybe these accounts of reference could be, you could explain how reference works by thinking about conscious experience in the world. There's something about the way we think about our relation to the world around us, the world described by physics, that makes it very hard to see how that could be. And really the main thing I want to do today is look at that and how these issues play into an account of acquaintance. Okay, so remember this idea that the function of language, the reason we've got a language in the first place, is the transmission of knowledge. That's why having a language is a good thing. Without a language, you find out something, well that's good for you, but no one else can benefit. With a language, knowledge can be transmitted from person to person. That's the whole idea of a university, right? That's the whole idea. I mean, that's what civilization is when we transmit knowledge from person to person. That's why language matters. And you could say, well, what an assertion is, what a statement made, a fact-stating remark made in language, what that is when you're transmitting knowledge to someone, or at any rate going through the motions of transmitting knowledge. So even if I'm telling you a lie or being ironic, when I speak there, I'm talking as if I'm transmitting knowledge. That's the only reason it works. So an assertion is something that's good for transmitting knowledge. And reference is when you're connected to an object in such a way that you're in shape to transmit knowledge about that object. So then, just as you might say, perception is defined by its role in giving you knowledge. You could say, well, perceiving an object is something that has to give you knowledge of the object. So to be perceiving the object, you've got to be causally connected to the object. Causal connections matter for reference, for perception, because they matter for knowledge. Do you remember that? This is quite a long time ago at this point. The idea that knowledge requires a causal connection to the fact you know, and therefore perception, because it has to do with knowledge, requires a causal connection to the fact. So if an assertion is going to be something that can give you knowledge of the object, then an assertion about the object is going to require a causal connection to the object. Because that's what knowledge is. It's when the object impacts on you in such a way that you form a correct belief about it, and you then transmit that to other people in such a way that they then form correct beliefs about the object. But there have to be these causal connections back to the object for knowledge to be being transmitted through the community by this process. That's why causation matters for reference. Is that okay? We got that pretty cold? If you don't, this is your chance to complain. Okay, so if that works for causation, right, that was the explanation of why causation matters for reference, because causation matters for knowledge. Is that all right? You don't look very convinced, but okay. Well, the idea here is referring to the object is a matter of being in a position in which you can make assertions about the object that can transmit knowledge of the object. So reference to the object requires a causal connection with it. And the great thing about this idea is that it even tells you what kind of causal connection is going to be important. If the object just hits you in the head, if the object just knocks you out, that's not going to allow you to get knowledge of the object. It is a causal connection, but it's not the right kind of causal connection. Whereas if you've got the thing in good light, you're getting a good look at it, then it's causally connected to you in such a way that it is radiating information about itself to you, giving you knowledge of it. So that's the kind of causal connection you need for reference, one that can give you knowledge. Reference is when you're causally connected to the object in such a way that you can transmit knowledge about the object. But if all that works for causation, if that can explain why causation is the right notion, that can also explain why consciousness is the right notion in giving an account of reference. Because think again about these blind sight cases. You remember where the patient has got no conscious awareness of what's going on in one half of their visual field. Now, a patient who has no conscious awareness of what's going on in one half of their visual field can still be causally connected to the things in that half of their visual field. That's to say, the thing might be, let's say, oblong, and you ask the patient, what's the shape of that thing in the left in your visual field? And the patient says, I have no idea. And you say, guess. And the patient is reliably right when they guess. They say, I guess it's oblong. If you push me to it, I will guess it's oblong. And you say, that's right. Now, initially, the patients in these studies were extremely surprised that they were getting it right. They said they were just as surprised as the experimenters. I mean, it was amazement all around. But the thing is, once the patients showed that they had this kind of capacity, they have spent the good majority of their lives since in laboratories being tested. They have done this thousands of times at this point. So it is no surprise to them at this point when they get it right. Yeah? So what we can say about these patients is they're causally connected to the things of which they have no experience in such a way that they are reliably getting it right about the shape, about the orientation, about the size of the things in their blind field. But we never, no matter how many trials they've done, no matter how reliable we know they are, people never say the patient knows what's in their blind field. They're always said to be just guessing. They're guessing in a way that they reliably get it right. But they never get knowledge of what's in the blind field. So knowledge doesn't just require a causal connection between you and the thing you're perceiving. This patient's got a causal connection that reliably gives them the right information about what's there in the blind field. This patient doesn't have knowledge about what's in the blind field. We would never say they know that the thing in the blind field is oblong. They never say, I knew it was oblong. They say, well, you made me guess yet again, and I was pretty sure I would get it right. But it wasn't knowledge. When you and I just so unproblematically and easily look at the thing and say we know what shape it is, it's not just the causal connection, it's conscious awareness of the thing that is providing you with the knowledge. So the argument was reference to the object is requiring a causal connection. The reason reference is a causal notion is that knowledge requires causation. You can't transmit knowledge about the object unless you're causally connected to it. By that same argument, reference requires awareness of the object. Reference requires consciousness of the object, because it's only when you're conscious of the object that you're in a position to transmit knowledge of that thing. So following that line of argument, it's got to be experience of the knowledge that's giving you, experience of the object that's giving you knowledge of reference. The blind-sighted patient doesn't have any knowledge about what's in their blind field. They're just making reliable guesses. Therefore, they're not in a position to refer to it. Yep.
Is there a sense in which you could transmit knowledge if I just treat him as a sort of thermometer?
Yeah.
So, because has the phenomenology of guessing, and so that doesn't allow him to ever say he knows.
Yeah.
Could I just be with that? So in a sense, you could transmit knowledge just like some other reliable device is.
That's right. I think that's true. I think you could, in that sense, you could transmit knowledge. I mean, I can do that. What I mean is, my sense of direction, I usually find myself with very strong feelings about where things are, what way to go, right? I'm reliably wrong about that. I mean, it's not as if I just don't know. I mean, I actually always have a very strong sense of where things are, and it's usually wrong. So someone who knows me well could use me as a thermometer in that sense. They could say, I thought it was over there, but Campbell thinks it's over there, so it can't be over there. You see what I mean? So when I say that, there's a sense in which they can use me as a thermometer, but it's not like if you just ask someone the time, and they look at their watch and they say, and you just take it in. Do you see what I mean? There's a kind of, usually when that happens, if you say what time it is and someone says it's 3:10, then you don't use them as a thermometer. You just internalize what they just said. You just drink it in. You see what I mean? You just internalize their remark and take it on yourself. You're not using the other person as a thermometer in that case. In the ordinary case, where they just say something and you drink it in. That's what transmission of knowledge has got to mean here. That kind of drinking it in. You know, someone says something, you just accept it, and that's that. With a blind sight patient, you're not just accepting what they say and thereby getting knowledge. I mean, let me put it like this: if you didn't know that the blind sight patient was blind sighted, you just wonder what's in their what shape the thing that is in fact in their blind field is. I mean, suppose you're asking them the time, right? And their watch is in the blind field, and you say, what time is it? And they say it's 3:10, and you have no idea what's going on. You think it's just a regular situation. In that case, you don't get knowledge. The way you get knowledge there is by having some background knowledge of the whole situation yourself, so that you do understand how this patient functions. And for all you know, the patient might be like me; they might be reliably getting things wrong. You see what I mean? And in that case, you certainly couldn't do it just by drinking it in. In a way, it's only an accident there that the patient reliably gets it right. It's that's just the way the measuring, the instrument needle works here. Yeah, that they reliably get it right. They could always be 10 minutes ahead or 10 minutes behind. You need to have the background knowledge. The way it works here is they're always on the button. Yeah. But in the usual case, it's not like that. You just stop someone in the street and ask them what time it is. They look at their watch. You know what time it is. Yeah. You don't need any of that background knowledge about using them as a thermometer. So that's important what you say. But I think there's a contrast here. I think. Is that addressing? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Flush with success. That's okay. That's one result. The lecture's hardly begun. Okay. So if this is right, then what is making the whole machine of language work, what is getting us off the ground in the first place, is awareness of the objects around us. That's what is hooking you up to the objects. So the awareness here is more primitive than your ability to think about the world around you. You can make a distinction between two kinds of aspects of your psychological life. There's the thoughts you have, and there's your experiences and sensations. And the picture here is your experiences and sensations are more primitive than your ability to think about the world, and it's your experience of the stuff around you that breathes life into your thoughts, that makes it possible for you to have thoughts about the objects and properties around you. But there's something about the way that physics enters into our picture of the world here that makes it seem that can't be right. The picture here is that there's the world out there, there's all the objects out there, and then consciousness is a relation between you and the thing out there. Consciousness is you being acquainted with the stuff out there you're going to talk about. But if physics is right, then what's out there are not the ordinary familiar objects. What's out there is just atoms whirling in the void. let me pursue this a bit. Before we thought about physics, Bliss it was in that dawn to be alive, before physicists came along. So this is what the world seemed like back to a medieval peasant, for instance. The world was there with all its colours and smells and tastes, and they were all out there, whether we were there or not. We just happened to come upon the rich world that we usually would take ourselves to know. And we shared the world. There were the same colours and smells and tastes for all of us to encounter. So then you really could think of conscious experience as a relation between you and what's out there. Those things were out there before we came. When we land in the world, we can now encounter those things in experience. That's your experience is. And that's how come your experience can let you think about the objects. Because just as Russell thought, it's a relation between you and the stuff out there. But now, the experience is not something just in your head. Experience, the whole experience that you have, is a relation between you and the environment. The qualitative character of your experience is constituted by the way things are in your environment. But then physics seems to blow that up. There's always something. Things are going so well. But then physics tells you, what is the picture that physics gives you of the world around you? And back in the 17th century they said, look, if we're right, and we think we are right, then all that there is out there are atoms and the void, the mathematically describable characteristics of basic atoms. None of that stuff that you usually think is there is really there. It's mostly empty space with lonely clusters of atoms here and there. There's mostly empty space, actually. And nowadays, things have not got better, they have got worse. The world as described by quantum mechanics is not a bit like the world we ordinarily think we encounter. The world as described by quantum mechanics is alien. It is unimaginably alien. And usually we operate with a kind of doublethink about this. I mean, even physicists operate with a kind of doublethink about this. That on the one hand, you know perfectly well that what science is telling you is that out in the world, there are only these strange particles, these strange forces. Other people, the colours, the smells, the tastes, your mum, all these things, they're not really there. There's only the fundamental particles of physics, the fundamental forces. None of that stuff can be identified with the things you care about. So the world you experience, ordinary consciousness, can't be a relation between you and an object. You can't think of consciousness like that as a relation between you and what's out there. You have to think that the visual experience is just something being generated in your brain by all those particles out there. The colours and smells and tastes are just stuff that are generated in your brain. It's just something peculiar to you, idiosyncratic to you, that the physics produces. Out there is nothing like the ordinary stuff for you to encounter. So now it seems like experience must be just a matter of having these throbbing sensations. And that couldn't be what tells you what's going on in the world around you. It couldn't be the foundation for your thinking about the world. If you think that the experience is a relation between you and the world, then that could be what's connecting you to those objects, so you can think about them. But if the experience is just a kind of epiphenomenon, just something being generated backstage in the brain, then how could that be what puts you in touch with the world to think about it? How could that be what makes it possible for you to think about what's really out there? What's really out there is all this alien stuff. And actually, it's not just that your experiences couldn't be letting you think about the world. I mean, other people's experiences, for all you know, could be completely different to yours. So long as you thought, there's just one world out there with all the colours and smells and tastes and all the regular objects in it, and I'm encountering it, then other people would have the very same experiences if they encountered the same world too. But in this picture, other people might be having experiences that are completely different to yours. All that's really going on is that the fundamental particles are generating these sensations, and these sensations bear no resemblance to what's really going on. And since they don't bear any resemblance to what's really going on, other people could be getting, they're just haphazard collections of sensation, and other people could be getting quite different haphazard collections to the ones you get, and in fact, some other people might not be getting anything at all. They might just be getting brain states and no experience. Everything would just be going on as it is, in accordance with the fundamental laws of physics. I think something like that is the picture people usually have of our relation to the world as described by science. As I say, there's a kind of double think in it, because this is a terrifying picture, really, when you think about it. I mean, out there is just this weird stuff. I mean, think about what is going on right in this room at the moment, in this spatial zone, if physics is correct. It's none of the regular stuff. It's just this weird alien configurations of particles. Now, in that world, the world is described by physics, where physics is giving you, I mean, physics after all claims to give you comprehensive coverage of everything that's going on, then in that world, there simply isn't anything that you could possibly care about. None of the stuff that we actually want to think about or that we do care about is there in the world as described by physics. This is what I mean about doublethink. Because after all, even physicists go shopping, they go to the store, they make dinner, they interact like regular people. They don't actually try to live with this picture. But at the same time, the official story is this is really what the correct picture of what's going on. And that's what pushes consciousness back into your mind, makes it just an epiphenomenon, couldn't be what is relating you to the world around you. But if physics is right, if the usual interpretation of physics is right, in the world that's really here in this space-time zone, there aren't other people, there aren't